What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we either build them or fix them together. Now this week we are covering the path of the Berserker Barbarian, and it didn't go so great when we ranked it, so today we're going to be fixing it. So if you're excited to see how we can make the most barbarian be more barbarian and also not bad at the same time, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch this channel are actually not subscribed, so it would really help me out if you would go ahead and subscribe, and it really helps out the channel. Of course, also click the bell. That way you're notified anytime that I upload, and so that way you don't miss any of the future episodes of this series. We're going through every single subclass, and so there is a lot to cover, so there will be a lot of videos coming up in the future. So the path to Berserker had several problems. First of all, exhaustion being tied to one of your main features while also not having great ways of getting rid of it. And it can cause a lot of issues depending on how many encounters that you have per day. You know, if you've got 3 or more encounters in the day, you're pretty well screwed. And even if you have 2, you still can only recover 1 of those levels of exhaustion going into the next day for your long rest, unless somebody wants to cast Greater Restoration, which in my opinion is not worth it, just because there's some hefty components there. So yeah, it really makes that not worth playing. So I definitely think it needs to be revisited and fixed. So we are going to attempt to do that today. Now I will say that this fix is nowhere near as complex or anything as our Battle Rager was. Our Battle Rager was basically a complete rehaul, just complete redo. This one is actually pretty subtle in its changes, but I think that the subtlety is what's going to make it good. We're not changing the flavor of it, so it's going to keep the same name, unlike the last one. And we're going to keep a lot of the same features, but we're adding some features and we're changing some key ways that it's worded today in some of the features that we have. So I think that this is going to make it much better without making it crazy busted. Of course, let me know in the comments below what you think. So let's go ahead and look at what we have changed, what is different. So keep in mind, you can, of course, go in the description below and download this document for yourself. And you could also check it out on D&D Beyond. It will be on there as well. So if you want to try it out, it's on there in the homebrew section. So check that out as well. So Frenzy. Frenzy is our main ability, obviously. And so this normally would allow us to make an extra attack on our bonus action. We've changed this a little bit. So basically, it's going to be like a hasted action, and you get to take an additional attack just while you're raging, which is great if you choose to frenzy. So it's still optional, and we're going to keep the level of exhaustion. I considered taking it away, but I do think that there needs to be a consequence to this. Just because, you know, with haste there's an option because you get tired at the end of it. I think if we're giving the effects of haste here, I think that that's going to need to be the same way. So we're going to keep the exhaustion, but it's no longer a bonus action. So when you take the attack action, you can now make an additional weapon attack. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a melee attack. Notice I took out that specification, so we can now make an attack with the same weapon or the same type of weapon. This keeps it to where if you threw a javelin, you could throw another javelin, because if I say the same weapon only, then you've already thrown that javelin. So this covers both. So say you need to throw a weapon, then you're covered there too. So I wanted to make sure that we had that flexibility. Because I think that that's important, because you don't always want to make a melee attack if you're wanting to stay back for whatever reason. Again, very specific situations could come up, but you know, I like giving you the flexibility here, and so I think that that's going to make it much better. Also at level 3, we're gaining an additional feature, and we're calling it Superior Athlete. So what this does is it gives us proficiency in athletics if we don't have it already. If not, then we're going to get proficiency with a dex-based skill. So one of our physical skills here. So I think that's nice, more for flavor than anything. The big thing is while we are raging, we ignore the effects of exhaustion. That's key to me. So this is now if we have 3 levels of exhaustion where normally we would be at disadvantage on everything, we ignore that now. And I think that that's going to be much more important, especially if we happen to get up to 5 levels of exhaustion and our speed was 0, we now can ignore that. Obviously, when our rage ends, we would then, die, because then we would reach our 6th level. But yeah, so I think that it's much better to be able to ignore the effects of exhaustion. It's just a temporary thing. So basically the whole flavor of this subclass is you turn your mind off and you just go to town, right? And so I think that this captures that. I think we just shake it off. We have a big surge of adrenaline and we ignore the fact that we're exhausted and we just go ham, and then we realize how tired we are after the battle. So I think that this is a much needed improvement, and it's going to actually get even better once we reach level 6. So let's go ahead and look at that. At level 6, we keep our mindless rage feature, but it has changed slightly. So now when we rage, we end charmed and frightened. So that's our only difference there. Otherwise, it works the same. It's no longer suspended. I just think the suspended is bad, just because to me, once you've started raging, you've forgotten all about any of that. We've turned our brains off. We're done thinking about it. So I think it makes a whole lot more sense to just end it, and it keeps from shenanigans happening after your rage. So yeah, I don't think that it was right before. We've also added sound sleep. I'm not so hot on the name. If you think of a better name, let me know. But basically with this now, we can recover more than 1 level of exhaustion. This was crucial for me if we're going to keep that level of exhaustion that we get. So I think that this is absolutely necessary. So basically now, instead of only getting 1 back on a long rest, you can now spend hit die equal to however much you want, up to Constitution modifier, which should be pretty good. And you will gain that many levels of exhaustion back, depending on how many hit dice you spend. I think that's pretty good. Personally, for me, it's not every day that I use all of my hit die during an adventuring day on a short rest. I did think that on a short rest, I almost just said you get 1 back on a short rest as well. But I don't think that that's good, because then you're just going to want to be short resting all the time, and I think that messes with your DM as well. So I don't want to create that kind of an issue. So I think that this is a fair trade. I almost put a caveat on there that it needed to be after 1d4 long rests, but I don't think that that's going to be necessary. I think that it's going to be fine just the way that it is. So yeah, let me know what you think of that. I really think that this is cool, and I think that this is a much needed improvement, because we really needed a way to get rid of that exhaustion faster, and I think this is a good compromise of using a resource in order to get back something crucial. So let me know what you think. Level 10, Intimidating Presence. This one had a lot of issues. There was a lot that I didn't like about this the first time. So we can now use our bonus action instead of our action. When we talked about the Leonin back in our Ancestral Guardian video, we talked about how a lot of other races got a fear effect on their action, but the Leonin gets it on a bonus action, and how crucial that is. This is the same thing. So we now we basically have the Leonin feature just built in, essentially, is what this is. So no reason to go Leonin on this, but I do think that this is going to be a much better way to do it. So now it is a bonus action. You get more than 1 creature. It's a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus. So there's some scaling there, and it's a wisdom saving throw based on your strength modifier rather than your charisma. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to have a barbarian have an effect that was based on charisma. but it's a bad idea. So yeah, no, we're gonna make it based on strength because you're intimidating them with your muscles, and so I think that that's much better. So yeah, no, the charisma modifier made no sense to me at all. So then it's frightened until the end of your next turn. On subsequent turns, we can use our bonus action to extend it. This gives us something to do with our bonus action, and this no longer competes with frenzy because we moved frenzy to an extra attack, basically a hasted attack. So now they sync. Now they are not competing for each other. I think this is wonderful. Now you can do both at the same time, and it gives you something to do with your bonus action all the time. We kept the if the creature succeeds on the saving throw, can't use the feature on that creature for 24 hours. I think that's fine. I do think that it's somewhat easy to get out of this feature, but I at least made it to where you're not going to fail using at it all the time because your charisma modifier is bad. So I think if anything else, that's a huge improvement to this feature. It will at least work way more than it would have before. Finally, 14th level, Retaliation. We kept this one almost the same. Almost the same. We changed one little thing. It is no longer within 5 feet of you. It is within reach of you. This means that you can use a polearm. If something is against you and hits you, maybe the opponent has a polearm and is 10 feet away. Otherwise, you were just kind of screwed. Now, it is within your reach. If something is 10 feet away from you and casts a spell, if they use a javelin, if they shoot a gun, if they, do whatever, you can hit them as long as you have the ability to reach them. Obviously, this makes Bugbear a really, really awesome option for this one, just because of your long-limbed feature. But yeah, I think that makes much more sense for people who take a polearm. Now, obviously, Polearm Master somewhat competes with Intimidating Presence about taking that extra attack on your bonus action. So, that's a thing. But I still really, really like this. I think that this is a much needed improvement overall. So that is it. Of course, let me know in the comments what you think. But I think that this is a much needed improvement. A lot of the changes were really subtle. But I think adding the 2 features of being able to ignore exhaustion and being able to get rid of exhaustion much easier, I think is a much needed boon for this. So, of course, let me know. Did I go too far? Did I not go far enough? I'd love to know down below. And of course, feel free to use this on D&D Beyond or in your home games if your DM allows it. Next week, we are going to be moving on to the Storm Herald Barbarian, which is a very, very exciting one. I really like the Storm Herald. It's very unique. It is completely unlike any of the other ones, and so there's a lot of flavor there. So definitely check that out as well. So subscribe so you don't miss it. Anyway, have a great weekend this weekend, and we will see you next week with our video. Stay safe out there and stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.